Lions, Bucs, what were your overall thoughts on the game? Again, the Lions really did dominate for the majority of it. Baker just an off night, missed a
Yeah.
lot of throws. I thought the Lions defense played really well. They've shown up big in some big moments this year. And Jared Goff, when he's protected, is pretty elite. Jahmyr Gibbs, big game. I mean, not much else to say. The Lions just dominated the entirety of the game pretty much.
Yeah, at least we'll start with the Lions since you brought them up. It did feel like they dominated the entire game, right? I mean, the first half, I believe they had like 7 more first downs. They were killing them on total plays, had like almost 200 more total yards, and yet it was 14-3. And you're like, how have the Lions not put up 30 by now? And it's because they had some self-inflicted wounds. Credit to Todd Bowles and their defense. They came up big with some turnovers, a fumble, and interceptions. Jake Bates missed field goal, a turnover on downs. But like you said, it just felt like the Lions dominated the entire game. It wasn't a clean game from them, but it was a 2-score game. Didn't really feel like it. Felt like until the end when Baker was trying to get back into the game and failed, then the Lions had the ball for the most time. Jahmyr Gibbs was electric. I think the biggest takeaway from the Lions side of things is their new defensive coordinator, Shepard, 9 points to the Buccaneers. Hell of a performance. I mean, it's one of the best offenses in the league. And to have a bunch of injuries in that secondary and to come out and only hold Baker Mayfield. I get they lost Mike Evans, but Ibuka's back. Cade Otton. They got Rashad White. To only hold him to 9 points is pretty impressive.
You know, and they had Mike Evans, too, earlier on in the game. I know he went out, I think, with a concussion and a shoulder. Look, the Lions are Super Bowl contenders, and I seriously missed on this team. I thought after week 1 and losing their 2 coordinators, they would fly down the power rankings. They've done the exact opposite. They're maintaining their success. Jared Goff has never looked better. The offense is super talented. J-Mo, Amon-Ra, Sam Laporta, Gibbs, and Monty still doing their thing. O-line is holding up. Defense has looked great, Steve. Just like you said, Kelvin Shepard has done a phenomenal job. I thought that hole from Aaron Glenn would be a lot bigger than what it's been. Kelvin Shepard has done just the same, if not better, than what Aaron Glenn did. Now it's about fighting injuries. Tonight, it seemed like every time I looked at the screen, a Detroit Lion was injured on defense. If they can stay healthy, which was their biggest thing last year, they weren't healthy going into the playoffs. It was tough. I think Hutchinson came back from an injury, but, that was real quick. If they can stay healthy, this team is really dangerous. And I missed. They look phenomenal, and they are the best, if not one of the best teams in the NFC right now. As for the Bucs, Steve, look, Baker's been playing at an MVP level all year. This was an off night for him. He missed a huge throw to Tej Johnson, which would have put him in the end zone. 4th down conversions, they were just lacking. Took a few too many sacks. It was just an off night. It seemed like early on you could tell the timing was off. He was missing a bunch of his guys on timing routes, middle of the field, sideline, you name it. It just felt off. It felt like a scratch-off night for the Bucs. Write it off, move on to next week. But again, this is another week against a better NFC opponent. I think they lost to the Eagles, correct? And then they also had the Lions tonight, obviously. These big NFC opponents, you probably want to see a few better games from the Bucs. Eagles, they were heavily reliant on a few big plays from Baker. Tonight, again, just couldn't hook that up. Think you want to see a little bit more of a put-together performance from Baker and this team against these better NFC teams. We're starting to see who the top 2 seeds are, maybe Philly and Detroit, and then you got the Bucs and the Packers in that tier. But again, just an off night from Baker, I thought. Nothing else. Like the defense, ironically, played pretty good to close out the game. They kept them in it. So, it really was on Baker tonight, but he's been playing good.
Yeah, I mean, you said it was an off night for Baker. It felt like, speaking with baseball in the conversation, it felt like watching a pitcher without being able to locate the zone. Baker was all over the place tonight. It was by far his worst game of the season. And you kind of feel bad because he's been playing like an MVP, but just didn't have it tonight. Pulling up the numbers here, 28-50 for only just 228 yards. When you throw the ball 50 times, you only get 228. That's pretty bad. 4.6 an attempt. He had the touchdown, but like you said, it felt like he could have had like 4 or 5 more. He was just missing guys all over the pace. The pick wasn't his fault, but 4 sacks. Again, it felt like watching an all-star pitcher who couldn't find the zone. Baker was either missing guys too high or underneath. There was no in between. It didn't feel like he had his accuracy. And, when I came on here the other week, I said Patrick Mahomes is the MVP favorite. Credit to Baker, but Mahomes has to be the front runner. And there's a reason why Vegas, when Mahomes was 3-3, but Baker had the better stats, they still had the odds said Mahomes was the MVP favorite because Vegas had to bake in, no pun intended, Baker having games like this where he just, you know what I mean? He just doesn't have it. He's more likely to have those games that he plays himself out of an MVP than Mahomes. And you feel bad because Baker had a great season, but he just didn't have it tonight. And, you know, we were talking the other week about, like, where do the Bucs rank in the NFC, and I was always so hesitant, even with their record, to say the Bucs were really true Super Bowl contenders because when I watch them play against the top dogs in the NFC, they're competitive. Don't get me wrong. This was a 2-score game the entire way. The Bucs defense played really good against the Lions offense, forcing mistakes. Baker just didn't have it. Listen, I give him credit for playing like an MVP. It felt like his wide receiver room has just been on the injury list the whole way. And Mike Evans gets hurt again tonight. He just gets Emeka Egbuka back. But he was just all over the place tonight. And the loss was just on him. That was a winnable game.
Just airmailing so many throws. It was just off overall. And the Lions really kept Tappa in the game too. You know, Dan Campbell balls a steal, going for it on 4th down in the red zone. They could have layered on a few field goals, packed on the points. But that's the benefit sometimes you get of playing the Lions. They'll miss on a few 4th downs, give you the opportunity. It was there for the taking. Just an off night from Baker. You can't have those in the playoffs. But he's looked good almost all year. Mahomes definitely the MVP, but I'll raise you one better. Dak Prescott's been playing some pretty good ball too. And I know you know that too, Steve. We've talked about him a lot on the pod. Some good quarterback play this year overall from a lot of these guys.